As Donald Trump advances his bold economic agenda in a second term, the global rules that once held the economy together are coming apart. A new G7 tax deal crafted under US pressures has fractured international consensus. Meanwhile, the president's feud with Elon Musk, once an ally, now threatens to split the Republican base, disrupt tech and defense industries, and reshape the 2026 elections. Tonight, we dive into the double-pronged disruption. How is Trump reshaping the global tax order, and who benefits from the G7 retreat? What does his explosive clash with Elon Musk mean for the future of immigration policy, tech subsidies, and political power in America? I'm Mona Musalhi, and this is In Focus. According to the Financial Times editorial board, the US has opened a dangerous new front in its economic power play, pushing the G7 into exempting American companies from the OECD's global minimum tax rules. The FT warns that this move could unravel years of tax diplomacy, noting that capitulation to Trump's demands has demonstrated that blackmail can work. In Alberts, the US got what it wanted. Section 899, Trump's retaliatory tax weapon, is gone. In return, American multinational escape key global tax rules. But will this American first tax doctrine collapse? What's left of international coordination? Now, joining us is Mr. Meher Nicolas Fazeli, Director of the EU Asian Center and former advisor to the World Bank. Mr. Fazeli, good evening to you and welcome to Qnews. Let me here start with asking you, what is your interpretation of the G7's decision to exempt the US firms from global minimum tax agreement? And was this inevitable?
I'm delighted to join you today from Athens in Greece. The short answer is yes, it was unavoidable. Now, the thing is, I don't want to sound cynical, so I have to give you one caveat. So I'm only speaking in my personal condition, quality, and I'm giving you my personal opinion here, and I'm trying to be fair and neutral. Why am I saying that? Because very often in Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, when they describe what Trump does or doesn't do, they use, harsh words. I'm going to try to remain neutral. So I'm not going to defend Trump, but I'm not going to charge his, I'm not going to multiply his sins. So why am I saying it was unavoidable? For a simple reason. The world 5 months ago changed drastically. It's a completely different world. And most intellectuals, most politicians, most experts in Europe, and to a lesser extent in Britain, are having a hard time accepting the new reality. Why am I saying that? Because for 33 years, the world was dominated by a neoliberal, neoconservative worldview. So the elites on both sides of the Atlantic, America, Canada, France, Germany, Britain, G7, whatever, the elites, they spoke the same language. And we had elections, we had elections every 4 years, every 5 years, but people voted in America, Canada, England, France, but nothing changed because the economic and financial ideology of all ruling parties was pretty much the same. Even Trump himself, when he first came to power, in his first Trump White House, 5 years ago, or no, 7 years ago, when he was first elected, 7, 8 years ago, it was a different kind of Trump. the first Trump presidency, his wings were clipped and he had a very limited room for maneuver. Why? Because Congress, the Republican Party 7, 8 years ago was controlled by his enemies. So he couldn't spread his wings. Fast forward today, 5 months ago, when he entered the White House, it's a new kind of Trump who now controls firmly, and we saw it yesterday with the adoption of the big, beautiful bill by the US Senate. He was able to impose his will on recalcitrant Republican senators, and he crushed his main enemies inside the Republican Party called the neoconservatives, the neocons. They are now quasi-extinct in America. So what I'm coming at is the world is becoming more brutal, more cynical, quote unquote, because we are moving into a new era, the age of realism, defined by the Chinese-American rivalry, which is a very crude and cruel technological, financial, military rivalry pitting Beijing against Washington. And to be honest, the rest of the world is becoming irrelevant. So the opinion of the G6 or G5, whatever countries, if they are not happy with what Trump wants to do, he couldn't care less, because their only recourse would be to go to Beijing and Moscow, which they will never do, right? So in geoeconomics, geopolitics, power comes from the recourse. So if they don't agree with Trump's tax policy, what recourse do they have? None. So of course, he can mold them. He can impose his will on the Brits and the Germans and the French and the Japanese, and there isn't much they can do.
So we're speaking here about that they have no other option. Now, critics like the Financial Times, for instance, call it economic blackmail. Do you agree that Washington used Section 899 to force the G7's hand?
No, I think the wording, the choice of words by the Financial Times is not innocent. So I think, they are very much into that center-left, neoliberal, open borders, open markets, blah, blah, blah mindset, which is the old mindset, which today no longer exists because Trump is destroying it, right? And the Chinese are happy because the Chinese Politburo in Beijing, they are equally ruthless, and they also believe in realism, neo-realism, right? So when you have China and America's political and financial elites believing in the same ideas, to make a long story short, what the Financial Times or the Paris Times or the Berlin Times says doesn't matter much, to be honest. Why is the choice of words harsh and a bit unfair? Because what Trump is telling them is that he's a realist, right? He's a deal maker. He's a cold, crude realist. And instead of arguing with him on the same plane, instead of telling Trump, okay, you are a realist, we are going to speak to you like a grown-up realist. What do? They use moralizing, moralizing almost like preachers. Oh, he's evil, he's vulgar, he's whatever. But they're not addressing the issues. And the issues is, it's true, it's a fact, and you don't need to like Trump to say it, that many European and Asian and Latin American countries, when they exported their products and services to America, they paid much less than what American companies have to pay when they export their own products to Germany, France, Mexico, and Canada. It's a fact, right? So Trump was, in a very blunt way, being Trump, he doesn't do things diplomatically. He said, enough is enough, I want the terms to be equal. And all of a sudden, they started yelling and shouting. And to go back to your earlier comment, which was a good one, the OECD corporate tax idea, right? Mm-hmm. It is not a law. I'm sorry, I have a lot of respect for the OECD. I love the OECD, but it's not a law. The OECD is a think tank. What do think tanks do by definition? They suggest ideas. So the OECD suggested an idea about harmonizing global taxation inside G7 countries for big companies, blah, blah, blah. It's beautiful, but it's a suggestion. They have no power to decree laws, right? The OECD doesn't come up one good morning and say from now on there's a new law. No, it's only a suggestion. And then based on balance of power, nations, government, people, they accept or they reject the OECD's ideas or suggestions. And Trump is he's reasserting America's power using power politics. And of course they hate it. The others hate it because the others would like to think that Estonia and Poland and Bulgaria, when they meet with America, Russia, and China, their voice is equally important. The truth is no. The voice of Poland, Bulgaria, France is not on the same level as the voice of America, China, and Russia. So what Trump is doing, he's reasserting big power politics rooted in realism.
But, sir, what message does this send to the OECD, as you said, respectively, to smaller economies trying to enforce tax fairness?
So here is delicate. Why am I saying realism? Because if you want to enforce something in finance or economics or law, the force of law, right? You need to have a minimum of power, right? And so what I'm coming at is what are the big companies? So if Bulgaria, if the government of Bulgaria, or if the people of Poland or the Czech Republic, they have an idea about what a good and fair tax rate is for a company, they can apply what they think is a good and fair tax rate on their own Czech or Polish or Bulgarian companies, right? And maybe if they are part of the European Union, inside the European Union, maybe following the OECD's recommendation, they can decide to harmonize corporate taxes inside the EU. But why would they go to Washington, D.C., or Beijing, or Moscow, or Brasilia? Why would they tell the Brazilians or the Russians or the Americans, we in Europe believe that 15.2% is a fair tax level. From now on, your companies in America or China have to pay that tax rate we Europeans have decided is beautiful and fair. No, it doesn't work that way. The only way you can impose your will on others is if you are strong. If you are strong, if you have leverage, then yes, you can go to the other country and say, I am a superpower, I am China or I am America, I'm going to impose my will on you, right? That's balance of power. But if you don't have that balance of power in your hand, who are you, Bulgaria or Estonia, to lecture the Chinese and the Americans, right?
You mean here, what influence do they have, or what leverage do they have on other
Yes.
countries to impose what they really want?
Yes, what they think is fair, what they believe is fair, which may be true.
But that also reminds me of the second question in which I asked you if that was blackmail when they used the 899 sector. But let me ask you.
It's tough. It's tough. It's a little brutish and cruel, but it's not blackmail. Blackmail is exaggerated.
Is exaggerated. In the long term, could this shift open the door to a global return to tax competition, the race to the bottom?
My cautious answer is yes. So cautiously, I will say yes, because it opens the door to more competition, including tax competition. So we are entering an age where competition will be fiercer, more brutal, and more obvious. Because before, there was competition, but it was competition wearing a mask. What do I mean competition wearing a mask? Wearing a polite facade. So the Europeans, and I'm thinking here of countries like Luxembourg and Ireland, with the implicit secret backing of the European Union, right? So what they did, the Irish and the Luxembourg government and the EU implicitly helping them, they did a lot of tax competition, not only vis-a-vis their own European neighbors, but also vis-a-vis American corporations. And they, in Dublin and Luxembourg, earned billions of dollars by doing unfair tax competition, wearing a mask, wearing a mask of politeness and gentleness. Now Trump, he wants to do the same in a brutal manner, in a sincere, transparent manner. But so the world is entering an era of more brutal, more sincere, more cruel competition across sectors. And governments will weaponize. So they will use taxation as a weapon. They will use trade and commerce as a weapon. So we are entering an age where everything is going to be used as a weapon brutally. Everything, including commerce, including taxation, including import and export. And let's face it, China was under heavy, aggressive pressure from President Trump until 3 weeks ago. And 3 weeks ago, the Chinese said, okay, stop playing. If you keep on pressuring us, if you keep on raising export taxes, sanctioning Chinese companies, you know what? We're going to stop supplying you, Americans, with rare earth minerals. After 48 hours, Trump yielded to pressure. What does it mean? So everything is going to be used as a weapon between nations in that accelerating competition, including rare earth minerals, including energy, including oil and gas. So we are entering a very cruel era, which is the age of geoeconomics. So every nation will vie for a share of the cake, and they will do so more and more aggressively. So it's economic warfare. So it's not like Ukraine and Russia or Iran and Israel. It's not warfare using missiles or planes. It's using finance and trade.
And also it puts the globe on stakes. Right, Mr. Fazeli, please stay with us because we need to go to the other segment here. And from the global taxation to personal confrontation, the economic world order isn't the only thing being disrupted. The second half of our program shifts from diplomacy to drama. And as Trump's political war with Elon Musk explodes in the public, what started a dispute over spending bill has become a showdown over debt, immigration, and the future of the Republican Party.
Donald Trump is his name, and he's there to stay.
As unlikely, impossible, is now reality.
America powerful. We will win, win, win. And we will make America great again. We will very quickly make America great again.
The Guardian reports that the feud between Trump and Musk has blown up again, this time over the president's massive tax and spending bill. Musk has called it insane, threatened to form a new party, and blasted GOP lawmakers for betraying voters. In return, Trump has floated deportation, subsidy cuts, and even seeking his fictitious Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, on Tesla CEO. This fight isn't just personal. It could redefine tech policy, split the Republican base, and upend federal-private relations in space and defense industries. And back to you, Mr. Meher Fazeli here, and from the global taxation to this personal confrontation. Mr. Fazeli, Elon Musk's attack on Trump's tax bill has turned personal. Do you think this feud is a real ideological split or strategic posturing?
It's hard to say because both characters are actors, in a very different style. So the kind of acting, the kind of genre to which they belong is different, but they're both showmen. So they both, they're both show business creatures, right? So Elon Musk's business career owes a lot to the way he was able to communicate almost like a showman some concepts which he did not invent. He's not really an inventor, but he's a great aggregator of new technologies. And to get money, to get funding for these very expensive startups in America, you don't need to be an MIT engineer with a PhD in quantum physics. It's all good. But what you need the most is communication skills. And Trump was, Elon Musk was able to do that in his own style, in his own niche, and his niche is the Silicon Valley in San Francisco. And the same applies to Trump. He's also a showman. He was never that successful as a construction magnate and real estate entrepreneur, but he was very successful at branding, at convincing investors and buyers that he was a good entrepreneur, and he's a creature to a large extent of television. So without television, without The Apprentice, we would not have a Trump presidency. So even more than Elon Musk, President Trump is a creature of television and electronic media. But what I'm saying is not a critique. These guys are a reflection of the world we live in today, right? They're not bizarre or strange. The world we live in today is an audio-visual electronic world where reality is complemented or supplemented by the media image, the media projection. So what I'm coming at, in that battle we've witnessed between Trump and Elon Musk in the past 4 weeks, clearly Elon Musk has been on the losing side. So every time he attacked Trump, Trump fought back very brutally, putting Elon Musk on the defensive. And so right now, Elon Musk is on the ropes.
Exactly. And this is what we're seeing here. We're seeing kind of threats from both sides. The first, Musk is threatening to form this America party and bankroll primary challenges. Trump has threatened to cut the federal ties with SpaceX and remove EV subsidies. Now, how seriously should we be taking these threats?
So I think Elon Musk's threats, not seriously, because Elon Musk is very diminished. He talks big, but he doesn't have the means. So when you're threatening something in strategy, right, in the game theory they teach at schools of military and economic strategy, when you make a threat, you should be able, if need be, to apply the threat. And today, Elon Musk, why is he not credible? Because he's saying, I'm going to fund primaries in 2 years against the pro-Trump senators and congressmen. He doesn't have the money to do that. He's saying, I'm going to start a new party competing against the Republicans. He doesn't have the base for that. So what I'm coming at, Elon Musk played a very important role 8 months ago when Trump was running for office. So when Trump was fighting against Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, he had 90% of the US media against him. And then Elon Musk's support, using the X, the X Twitter platform, helping Trump, Elon Musk 7 months ago contributed immensely to Trump's victory. Today he's very diminished, and he never had the base. So he controlled X, Twitter, with the money, but he never had followers. He never had thousands of people supporting him. I think it's different. It's different.
Right.
So Trump has a base. Trump has a huge base, and he has tens of thousands of followers in every state willing to support him. At most, the Elon Musk base is 1 or 2% of the Trump base, much smaller.
Very clear what you're saying here, sir, but my time is out and I have to end it here. Mr. Fazeli, thank you so much for lending your expertise to this dynamic and very high-stakes episode. Now, as the US redefines its place in the global economic order, old rules are being rewritten, often with more power than principle. From exemptions in tax deals to open political vendettas with tech moguls, Trump's second term is transforming the world's economic and political map. This has been In Focus. Stay tuned and stay informed.